Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's me, your girl IJ, and this is IJ Designs. In today's tutorial, we are going to learn how to draft an off-shoulder body pattern. It can be used to make a peplum blouse, or to make a short gown, or a long gown, or a top. In any way you like it, you can use it. So today, we are going to learn how to draft a body pattern. And what do you need in drafting an off-shoulder body pattern? You need your tape, you need your marker, you need your scissors, your cuff, your ruler, and don't forget the measurement that is required. So without wasting much of your time, let's get drafting. Have you subscribed to my channel? If you have not, please kindly subscribe to my channel. Share, like, and comment on my videos. And put up the notification bell that whenever I upload a new video, you will be the first to be notified. You won't regret passing by my channel. I will always share my knowledge so that you can also DIY your style. So now, let's draft the off-shoulder body pattern. In drafting an off-shoulder body pattern, remember, the more inches you take away from the upper parts of the blouse, that is the shoulder, to where you want it to start, determines the depth of the blouse. The more inches that is removed from the shoulder determines the depth of the blouse. If you want it to be deep, you remove minimum of 6 inches. Then if you want it to be normal, 4 to 5 inches is okay. So the amount of inches you take away from the shoulder will now determine the depth of the blouse. In this tutorial that I want to make today, I'm going to use 5 inches. That is the normal. I will place my tape on 5 inches, but I'm not going to use 5. I'm going to use 4.5 to reserve the other half as the allowance, as the sewing allowance at the upper part. So I'm going to place my tape at 4.5. Here is 4.5. And what is the measurement that is required? As you can see, the shoulder of my client is 16. 16 divided by 2 is 8. So I will place 8 inches plus the half inch at the up, that is 8.5. That is this line. Then come down to the bust point. From the shoulder to the bust point is 12 inches. From shoulder to the waist is 18 inches. From the shoulder to the under bust, you also need your under bust in drafting an off-shoulder body pattern. From the shoulder to the under bust of my client is 15 inches. 15 inches, then I'm going to mark at 15. I'll come to this place, also mark at 15. Then shoulder to the waist is 18, to the hip is 22. I mark at 22, and the length of the blouse is 27. This off shoulder is for a blouse. 27 plus half inch seam allowance at the lower parts of the blouse. So now I will make it a straight line. Now we have made the vertical measurements into a straight line. Now let's insert the horizontal. I will start with the nipple to nipple measurement. And what is the nipple to nipple measurement? 9 inches. 9 plus 1 is 10. And 10 divided by 2 is 5. So I'm going to place my tape at 5 inches. Also 5 inches at the hip. 5 inches at the waist, 5 inches at the under bust, and 5 inches at the shoulder to nipple measurement. That is the shoulder to bust measurement. Some people doesn't like going straight to the down of the blouse, but I like putting my measurements all through to the length of the blouse. So I'm also going to insert 5 inches at the hem of the blouse. Now I will connect them into a straight line. Remember, the nipple to nipple measurement is 5. So I'm going to also insert 5 at the shoulder area of this blouse. Then plus 1 extra inch, making it 6 inch at the upper part of the blouse. That is the shoulder area. From there, I connected it to the bust point. Now, you connect it to the bust point with a straight ruler like this. You connect it here to the bust point. Then to make the blouse to have a bit of ease at the bust point, you can go up by 1 inch or ½ inch, but I'm going to go up by 1 inch. And I also come down by 1 inch, just to make the bust area to be ease, to have ease at the bust area. I go up by 1 inch and I come down by 1 inch. Now, what is the dart that you are going to take off? It depends on what you want. You can take off 1 inch dart, 2 inches dart, 1½ 1¼ What you like is what you take off as the dart, but I always go with 1¼ So now I'm going to place at the under bust. That is where you start taking out the dart from the under bust. I'm going to place 1¼ So altogether is 2½ inches that I'm going to take away from the under the bust. So now this is 1¼ I place it here, and the other side of it is 1¼ I place it there. So when you measure the two, what you have taken out of the draft is 2½ inches. Then out these 2½ inches, I will take it down to the edge of the blouse, because I want it to be a fitted blouse. If you don't want it to be a fitted blouse, you can take away 1 inch, but I like mine to be a fitted blouse. So I'm going to take this 1¼ down to the end of the blouse. From the under bust, I measured 1¼ at the waist, 1¼ at the hip, and also 1¼ at the hem of the blouse. Then now let's connect. We are busy with the down part of the blouse. Take your ruler, connect it in this form. From the 1 inch that you came down, that is where you connect it from. Then you connect it also to this area. Then you make it a straight to the hem of the blouse. Remember, all these allowances will be added after to the allowance of the blouse. All this that is being taken away, you add it back. Get your measurement right for your end product to be right. Now we have taken off the 2½ inches from under the bust down to the hem of the blouse. On this upper part of the blouse, from the shoulder, I'm going to also take away 1 inch from the two sides of the line that I drew first. From the 6 inches, from one side here, I will take out 1 inch, And from the other side, I'll take also 1 inch. That is 2 inches have been taken away from the upper part of the blouse. Now I'll connect it to the 1 inch that I went up from the bust point. Now I have connected from the shoulder to the 1 inch that I went up from the bust point. Now let's insert the horizontal measurement. Now the bust of my client is 42. After taking your dart out, then you now insert the horizontal so that you can also put in the allowances that you took away from the dart. 42 is the bust circumference that I'm using. So 42 divided by 4 will give you 10.5. From that shoulder measurement, the first measurement that is from the armhole, you now measure 10.5, and here is 10.5. The horizontal, that we are on the horizontal measurement. This is the 10.5. I place it so that you can see it. This is the 10.5. The 10.5. Then here something is going to go off from this side. Let's measure what is going off. That is ½ an inch. Will be cut off while cutting. Then I have to place the ½ an inch back to here. So I'll now place this at 11 inches. Then remember, you are going to join it. ½ an inch joining it from here, ½ an inch joining it from here is 1 inch. Then I place my 1 inch. Remember, you need to add your seam allowance. You can add 1 inch, you can add 2 inch, you can add 1.5 inch. That is your choice. I'm going to go by 1.5 inch. Then I'll come down to the waist. I don't have to do any, I don't want to insert the underbust. When I will shape it, the underbust will be inclusive. So now to the waist, what is the waist of that I'm using? The waist that I'm using is 38. 38. Now let us calculate what 38 is going to give to us. 38 divided by 4 is 9.5. Remember, why we are dividing by 4 is because we folded the material in 4. That is, you fold it in 2. So you fold it in 2. When you get your material, before doing anything, you fold it in 2. You fold it in 2 like this. That is why we are dividing in 4. This 2 is for the front and another 2 for the back. That is 4. That is why we are dividing by 4. So before you start, you fold it in 2. 9.5 is the waist that we are using. 9.5. 9.5. This will come down to the waist that we are using. 9.5. This is 9.5. Here is 9.5. Remember, this dart that we are taking away, we have to replace it. And what is the measurement of this dart? Remember, it is 2.5. So I'm going to add 2.5 here. This is my 2.5. That is, this dart in this area that will be going off is 2.5. I've added it back here. Remember, you are going to join it together. ½ inch, 1 inch. Plus extra 1.5 inch seam allowance that is going to give you 2.5 again. So you add 2.5. That is the extra you are going to add after 9.5. Altogether is 5 inches. So you add it. The hip that we are working with is hip 46. 46 divided by 4 is 11.5. Then we mark at 11.5. Remember, the extra allowance we are going to add is also 5. These that we are taking off, the darts that will be taken off, and also the 2.5 inches. So here you place your tape. After the 11.5, you mark 5 inches. Then what you marked at the hip, that is what you are going to mark also at the hem of the blouse. Let's check what is here. Here is 16.5. 16.5, then you bring it down also to 16.5. And then you are good to go. Now let's 16.5. Then let's go to the upper part of the blouse. That is the shoulder area of the blouse. Now, remember the depth of the blouse is 5 inches. 5 plus these 2 inches you are going to take off is 7 inches. Remember, from the shoulder, you took 1 inch out of the shoulder. That is 2 inches. Plus the depth of the blouse, that is 5 inches. It is 7 inches. Then you place your tape at 7 inches. The horizontal measurement, 7. 7 inches is exactly at this point. The line, the 7 inches is exactly here. Then the 7 inches is exactly here. So what you have to do is just add 1.5 inch. From the 1.5 inch now, you connect to here, and that is your armhole. With your cuff, you connect to here. Then from the armhole, from the chest line, you connect to the waist here. Then you turn your cuff in this manner to connect to the hip. Turn it in this manner. Use this side to connect it to the hip. Then you bring it down to the length. If you want it to be more free, you add some inches, like say 1 inch. If you want it to be more free, you can add 1 inch to it at the hem of it. Then you connect it in this form. See, our block is formed. Now let's determine the style of the neck. If you want it to be like straight in this form, it's your choice. Then if you want to make it a sweetheart, just come down by 1 inch, 1.5 inch, depending on the depth of the sweetheart curve that you want. Let me have this as 1. Let me put it at 1. Then I will use this my curve, this area also. Can use this area, you curve it in this manner. Just draw your curve. See? Then when you cut it off, you now have your sweetheart neckline. Then let's cut it out. I start from the down part of it. Watch what I'm doing. Now, this is the center of the blouse, but remember, while cutting in on your fabric, you are going to fold your fabric. I'll show you an example. I fold it in two, like so. Then I take my block and I'll place it at the edge. This is the edge. This is the edge. I place it so at the edge. I place it so at the edge, then I cut. This is the front panel. This is the side. This is the side panel. This is the side panel. This, and this is the center panel. This. So when you have folded it and cut it out in this form, and also place this also and cut out two of this, your front panel of an off-shoulder blouse is already. Now let's draft the back panel of the off-shoulder block that we have done. Now take your tape. Remember the depth of the blouse. The depth of the blouse is 5 inches, but we are starting with 4.5 for seam allowance at the upper part of the blouse. So I place my tape also 4.5. The back part is very easy. It is easier than the front panel. So you place your tape at 4.5, mark your armhole at 8.5. Remember, we added this 0.5 because of the allowance at the upper part. Then come down to the waist. You don't need your bust point at the back. You don't need your under bust at the back. Only what you needed at the back is the chest line. Then you come down to the waistline. Then you come down to the hip line. The waist shoulder to the waist is 18. Shoulder to the armhole line is 8.5. Shoulder to the waist is 18, and shoulder to the hip is 22. And remember, shoulder to the length of the blouse is 27 plus half-inch seam allowance. I also come to this side, 8.5 shoulder to armhole, shoulder to waist 18, shoulder to hip 22, and shoulder to the length of the blouse 27 plus half-inch seam allowance. Let's draw it into a straight line. Now at the back, remember, you must make room for the zip allowance. That is the first thing to be done at the back. I'm using this to be my material, so I'm adding the zip allowance. I'm using 1.5 inch for the zip allowance, or let me use 1 inch for the zip allowance. 1 inch. Don't forget that, otherwise your measurements will not be correct. 1 inch seam allowance at the back, zip allowance. Also to the hem of the blouse. Then draw it into a straight line. After this 1 inch, that is where your measurements will start from. Your measurement starts after the zip allowance. The measurement starts from here. The horizontal measurement starts from there. So now, what is the nipple to nipple measurement? Is 5 inches. Come to the waist and start 5 inches. Here 5 inches. Then this is the chest line. You also insert 5 inches at the chest line. From this 5 inches at the chest line, come down by 1 inch. here, come down by 1 inch, then draw it into a straight line to join the waist. Also, from the waist, also take to the hip. Now 5 inches also to the hip. Now 5 inches, and also make it into a straight line. Join to the waist, and from the waist to the chest line. So, and also like this to the waistline. Remember, you come down by 1/2 inch. So what are the dots that I want to remove? You can remove 1 inch, you can remove 1.5 or 1/2 inch, but I'm going to use 1/2 inch. From the waist, I will place my tape 1/2 inch from both sides. Then from the hip, I will come up by 1 inch. Remember, the hip line, I'll come by 1 inch. Then I'll connect it. From this 1 inch of the hip that I came up, I connect to the waist. And I connect it to the waist. Now, from the chest that I came down by 1 inch, I connect it back to the waist. Now, the vertical is ready. Let's impute the horizontal. What is my chest measurement? That is the bust of my client, 42. 42 divided by 4. Remember, 42 divided by 4 is 10.5. I place 10.5 after the zip allowance. 10.5. I place my 10.5 here. Remember, there is nothing going off here because the darts that you are going to take is from here, and I'm not going to cut out the dart. I'm only going to fold it like this. I'll fold the material like this. I'm not going to cut it out. I'll fold it like this, and I'll sew at the back of it. I'll fold it in this way. That is the way it's going to look. I'll fold it like this. So now, you are not taking off anything, so you don't need much allowance here. So what you have to insert as the allowance is on the 1.5 that inserted at the front, 1.5. Remember, here the depth of the blouse is 8. At the shoulder level, the depth that we took off was 5. So I'm going to place my tape at 5 also. This is 5. That is the depth of plus 1.5 inch seam allowance that I added at the front. That is here. Then, what is the waist? The waist was 38. 38 is the waist. Divided by 4 gave us 9.5. Then I will now place my 9.5 here. After the allowance for the zip. 9.5. This is 9.5. I'll mark at 9.5. Plus this 1 inch that I'm taking off as the dart. Remember, if you don't add it back here, you have a shortage of material. So this 1 inch that I'm taking off as the dart, I will replace it. And I'll also add 1.5 inch seam allowance. Then at the hip, I'm taking nothing out. So I'll take the measurement of the hip, which was 46 divided by 4, 11.5. I had to add 11 after this zip allowance. I insert 11.5. Remember, no allowance is taken off. Then I add S. That's 1.5 sewing allowance. Then what do I have here? 13. I bring it down to here, 13 inches. And remember, that 1 inch we added at the front of the blouse, we also repeat it here. So now let's connect the points. Let's connect the points. From the shoulder, I connect to the waist. I connect it so to the waist, and turn the hip. I connect it to the hip, and also down to the hem of the material. Now, so here I'll use this to connect from the shoulder down to the armhole. Our block is ready. See? Just connect it in a manner. Yeah. Our block is ready. At the back, you can decide to leave it also like this, or you can decide to come down, sweetheart, also at the back. That is your choice, but I decide to leave it in this form. So let's cut out our block I've just made. Just use this, place it on your material by folding it into two. Cut it, you have your back panel. So now the front and the back panel, they are ready. Now this is the front panel. This is the front panel, the center front and the side front. By folding it into two, you place the block and you cut your material out. And also this is the back panel. Then when you fold it, your material into two, you will now cut it out. I'm going to show you an example of what I meant. I'm going to cut a material out of this to show you what I meant. Place it and take the block that you have just cut out, place it on the fabric and cut it out. I'm going to give you an example of how to do that. Now I placed this on this fabric and I cut out the center piece, which is this. Can you see? I cut it, I stopped at the half length. If you want to make it a blouse, then you cut to the hem of the draft that we have just made. You cut to the hem, but I stopped at the half inch because I'm going to use this to make a peplum blouse. So that is the center of it. That is the center, and that is for this block. You cut out two of it. You see it? You cut out two of it. See, two of this. You place this and you cut out two of it. One side of the bust and the other side of the bust. You got your two panels. That's the two panels. These two panels have been taken care of. You will now have something like this. If you want, you can line it, put it interfacing, or you can sew it like this. The choice is yours. And you see, after drafting your block, if you want it for a blouse like we have just drafted, you cut it till the end of the blouse. But I'm going to use this to make a peplum blouse. So that is why I stopped at the half cut. For you also to know that you can also stop at the half length. Just add half-inch seam allowance to join to the peplum and you are good to go. This is the front panel, and the back panel is this. Also stop at the half length, add half-inch. So draft this full pattern and keep it, use it for the half and for the full blouse whenever you are making your blouse. So this is of two advantages. If you draft it and keep it, you use it for making your peplum blouse, and you also use it for making your ordinary blouse. So now you place it on your material, I said, and you cut out two of it. Now look at, you cut out two of it. From this block, you place it and you cut two. That's the back. See the back panel? This is the back panel. See it? And this is the front panel. This is the back panel. Use it 2-in-1. You draft it, you keep it, you use it for your long blouse and you use it for your peplon blouse. For peplon, stop at the half length. For the long blouse, stop at the hem of the draft you have made. You see? You are good to go. So guys, if this tutorial has been helpful to you, just give me a thumbs up, like, share and comment on my videos. I will see you in my next video when I will use this to make a peplon blouse. I will also share it with you guys. Have a nice day and remain blessed.